I'm Jeff Woodward, and this is ReSkilled. David Hay is a teacher with a long history of innovation and creation. David began as a high school physics teacher. He has taught at both the secondary and primary levels. He's currently working with Callisto, a nonprofit organization, to develop an online data science course that will help teachers integrate data analysis and computational thinking in their day-to-day work with students. Thanks for being with us, David. If we could start with you just telling us a little bit about your journey as a new teacher to now.
Well, I never really intended to be a teacher. I thought I'd go to university and do a science degree, and my parents and high school guidance counselors suggested perhaps a teaching degree would be a good idea. The University of Alberta was implementing their combined degree program where you can do both in 5 years. And so I went through and really fell in love with the teaching part of the process and ended up going into education, the teacher right out of university and teaching high school science and always being involved in technology as well. I took a programming course in university, but mostly been self-taught in terms of technology. In my student teaching experience, I was implementing new technology, PowerPoint and video games, cutting edge at the time, to introduce students to concepts and try to foster engagement and motivation.
Yeah, I didn't want you to date yourself, but I was going to ask what sort of cutting edge technologies you used as a student teacher.
Yeah, I've been around with educational technology for a while, but I wasn't quite in the Gestetner and slide projector kind of era. It's always been computer-based technology.
So you've been an early adopter of technology as a teacher and a consultant. How has your relationship, specifically around sort of distance learning or online learning, evolved over the years?
I think one of the big shifts that I've experienced in my own thinking is the idea that it's not as much about content. And in fact, that teaching isn't as much about content. Especially these days, there is so much content available that if you want to learn how to change the faucets on your sink, you can watch a YouTube video about that. There are all sorts of these learning opportunities that are available, but the value add that we have as educators is around the relationships that we can build. Students want connection, and as human beings, we want to be able to bounce ideas off of each other and encourage motivation to think about how will this work in our context and those sorts of things. So really, the connection needs to be first.
Yeah, that's something we encounter in virtually every course that we build with subject matter experts, that way to create community or create that feedback loop. You touched right off the hop on sort of the topic of formal versus informal learning. One of the most easily identifiable forms of informal learning is, I need to learn how to do that, go to YouTube. As you said, there's tons of content available to teach very specific skills, but when you need to do more abstract things like build community or, create critical thinking, how do you find yourself approaching building that stuff when you can't be in the room with the person?
There are different approaches to content as well as community. I guess to look at building community, it really depends on the comfort level of the teacher and students, although generally students can be pretty flexible, whatever platform you're throwing in, they'll pick it up. But really to think about what the interactions look like in terms of timeframes, in terms of synchronous and asynchronous, how will you continue to connect? And to some extent, where are the students at? If they are all avid Instagram users, then perhaps Instagram should be a platform that you look at. I mean, I wouldn't recommend TikTok or things like that, but to think about where the students are at, what is their experience like online, and how can you foster that in your environment as well?
So you can kind of create a classroom structure on any platform if you're willing to figure out how to work it.
Yeah, absolutely. And different platforms have different affordances, as they say. Some are much better for particular ways of doing things. At some point, you're probably going to need a learning management system that is like your your bookshelf, the place where all the stuff lives, and then you pull things out or push things onto there that students are using. But there are definitely 1,000 flowers blooming in this space that you can be using.
Yeah, that's cool. It wouldn't have occurred to me that you could do picture books on Instagram or something like that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's awesome. You've had the experience of building lesson plans for students and for teachers. Are there differences in the way you structure lessons for kids versus for educators?
Absolutely. There's a big difference in terms of motivation for the most part. When I'm called to do some sort of activity with teachers, the teachers have a specific reason for being there, whether it's something that they're interested in, something they've been trying and have some questions about, or something that their leadership has pointed them towards. So there's generally a lot more motivation. Some people do say that teachers make terrible students, but that hasn't been my experience. The things that I'm doing, I suppose, have been more optional. So I have perhaps a more selected audience because of that. But teachers are generally, they are really lifelong learners because we're encouraging our students to do this. Teachers think nothing of, well, on Saturday afternoon, I'm going to sit down and learn how to do this or take some time to figure this out. They also have the advantage of knowing that they are going to have to teach this. Something that research has shown is that learning with the intent of being able to teach something, you'll learn it to a much better level, and because you know that you have that audience afterwards. Whereas if there's no practical application of it, that might be a bit of a struggle. But that being said, with students, we have the added advantage that they are a captive audience. The government has mandated that they should be attending school, or they have this goal of getting into post-secondary, things like that. So that can contribute to motivation.
Do you think that everyone enjoys learning if they see the point of it?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that if there is a good application for the learning, or if they are choosing, I think we are probably wired to want to learn things.
Do you have a David Hayes philosophy of teaching?
Oh, I don't know that I've ever really formalized it. I suppose one of the phrases I find myself repeating is that the teaching is not about imparting knowledge, but it's more about curating resources and providing motivation. If you're doing those things, that is what education is about.
That's interesting. If you actually keep it that simple, that applies to any medium where you're going to teach, and really any audience. You just got to figure out who they are and how to reach them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm getting a sense that for you, the major difference in formal versus informal inquiry from a learner is really one of motivation. Am I making a correct assumption, or?
I would say you earlier asked me to think about the difference between formal and informal learning. I don't know that I have a solidified definition, but I would say it's something along the lines of, I love talking about motivation. I feel like this is what makes the world go round. But whether the motivation is extrinsic or intrinsic, I would say is what makes the difference between formal and informal learning. Whether it's somebody else pointing at what you should be doing, or yourself thinking, what is my end goal and how do I get there?
That makes a ton of sense. For me, as someone who is responsible for building online learning tools, that's sort of the holy grail, that you can, if you can make a learning tool that it replicates that falling down a rabbit hole journey, and you don't have to force a learner to follow a path, they can choose their own adventure and just chase their curiosity.
Exactly. I really think Wikipedia is one of the greatest human achievements. This online information source that's freely available in multiple languages anywhere in the world. How can we sort of replicate that, like you say, rabbit hole, the Wikipedia, click a link and then, click the next link, and suddenly it's 2:00 in the morning and you're reading about something that you've never heard of. That sort of learning process is something that is very interesting.
Binge learning. The next big thing, eh?
I love that term.
I don't think it's a real term, but it's something
I think I'm going to steal that.
You're welcome. This has been a really great and informative conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to talk a little bit about what you do. Any last words of wisdom to share with us about learning that you're just dying to leave our audience with today?
I don't know that I've ever really had any words of wisdom, but as I've said before, something we are all as a society now struggling with is how do we stay connected? How do we feel connected? Whether it's during this pandemic or really just in an era of social media and all of these things that draw us away from people, perhaps, how do we stay connected and stay engaged? That's something we need to be thinking about and struggling with.
Yeah, that's an important challenge to take on. I appreciate you spending some time to hopefully connect some dots for some people in the audience.
And thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Thanks, David.
Take care.
A common thread between formal and informal learning is the passion of the teachers. Any platform can be a learning platform if that's where the audience is, and if the instructor can use it effectively. They need to consider what's best for the learners they're trying to reach. That's it for this episode. ReSkilled is brought to you by Onlia, an e-learning production company located in the heart of Edmonton, Canada. This episode was produced by William Fritzberg, Mel Giel, Adriana Lopez Ferrero, Beau Desaunier, and me, Jeff Woodward. Thanks again for listening to ReSkilled.